the sincerity of Jesus. Do not be like the hypocrites. Matthew 6:5. All good qualities are beautiful, but some have a greater beauty than others. All virtues are important, but some are more crucial than others. There are virtues that, when absent, leave a person flawed and damaged, while others, when absent, leave a person empty and hollow. Certain virtues are showy and decorative, while others are basic and essential. If the showy ones are not developed, the whole character is incomplete. But if the basic ones are missing, the entire structure falls apart in ruin. One such essential virtue is sincerity. It is the most important part of the foundation, without which everything collapses. It is like the mother of a family of noble virtues, all of which draw their strength and beauty from sincerity. Truthfulness, honesty, plainness, frankness, simplicity, and many others are all children of sincerity. Sincerity is the virtue that people naturally desire and look for. It is a trait that parents seek in their children. Any form of deceit or trickery in a child causes a parent's heart to ache. Parents want nothing more than the genuine simplicity of a sincere heart in their children. This is what we expect in all the important relationships of life. Sincerity is desirable even in less important relationships, but it is absolutely necessary in the more significant ones. A person may do a job well, like sweeping the pavement or tending to the garden, even if they are dishonest at heart. However, we prefer and feel more comfortable in the presence of someone who looks at us with honest eyes. A servant may hold their position and be insincere, but a friend cannot. The words friend and insincere cannot go together. They are completely contradictory. The moment we discover that a friend is insincere with us, they cease to be our friend. Sincerity is the essence of friendship. We exclaim with joy that our friend is pure gold, meaning they have no impurities. Their nature is unspoiled and genuine. We can rely on them at any time of the day. We are wired to look for sincerity in others, and when we don't find it, we feel disappointed and hurt. When we realize that what we thought was sincerity was merely an imitation, it feels as if we have been stabbed. The mere suspicion that someone close to us is insincere makes us uneasy and makes the world seem insecure. Unfortunately, insincerity is very common. We live in a deceitful world filled with trickery, dishonesty, and deception of all kinds. Society is plagued with fake behavior, business is tainted with dishonesty, politics is filled with deceit and trickery, and there is spin and pretense everywhere. Some people use big words they don't understand. Some pretend to have knowledge they don't possess, and some live beyond their means. Many people live a life that is one big lie. We say things we don't mean, express emotions we don't feel, praise when we secretly condemn, smile when our hearts are frowning, and give compliments when we truly curse. We constantly strive to make people think we are different than we really are. It is a serious crime to obtain money through false pretenses, and we avoid doing that. However, how many other things do we obtain by pretending and deceiving, for which there is no punishment except the disapproval of God? Yes, it is a sad, deceitful, and demoralized world in which we find ourselves. But thankfully, there are still a few hearts we can always rely on. We have tested them and know they are trustworthy. Life wouldn't be worth living if there was no sincerity left in the world. We constantly seek refuge in honest hearts, finding rest and refreshment for our journey. Sincerity is a beautiful virtue. It may not be flashy or eye-catching, but it is solid and life-giving. It sustains and nurtures the heart. It is a virtue that is within reach for all of us. There are things we cannot be and many things we cannot do, but we can all pray to God to keep our hearts sincere. If you want to witness utmost sincerity in its most beautiful form, then come to Jesus. He is a man who is incapable of telling lies. Nothing was as repulsive to him as falsehood. He felt the most anger towards people who pretended to be something they were not. The word hypocrite was the most loathsome word on his lips. Have you ever wondered why it is impossible to say that word without it slipping from your mouth like a serpent? It's because his curse rests upon it. It wasn't a harsh word until he spoke it, but he poured his scornful breath into it, and ever since then, it has been a degraded and lost word. A hypocrite is like an actor. The word originally comes from the theater. On stage, we expect men and women to be different from who they truly are. An ordinary commoner can dress up as a king, speak like one, and behave like one, and we wouldn't be offended because we are not deceived. It is expected that on stage, no one will appear as they truly are. However, in the grand theater of the world, God expects every person to be true to who they claim to be. If we say things we don't believe, and pretend to have feelings we don't truly possess, and claim ownership of things we don't actually own, then we are deceivers and troublemakers, causing confusion and harm in the world. It was Jesus' sincerity that led him into deadly conflicts with hypocrites. A hypocrite and Jesus cannot coexist. Jesus constantly urged people to speak the truth. The religious leaders of his time had divided oaths into two categories, one binding and the other not. If an oath included the name of God, it was considered binding on the conscience. If they substituted God's name for another name, then their conscience was free from obligation. Jesus was disgusted by the reasoning of these deceitful individuals. He said, "Do not swear at all. Let your words be simple, yes or no." In other words, if you want to emphasize something, just repeat it. If people doubt you, calmly restate what you have already declared. Jesus believed that a person's word should be as trustworthy as an oath or a written agreement. In God's ideal world, the mere assertion of a person would be sufficient evidence to prove something true. The need for oaths in our current judicial system is a result of the evil one corrupting many hearts and making ordinary human speech unreliable. In an ideal world, oaths would be unnecessary and unheard of. Because of Jesus' unwavering sincerity, we have been blessed with a remarkable outpouring of straightforward words from his mouth. You and I may not appreciate plain words. We are often afraid to use them. We dilute our words. We weaken their impact. We replace short, simple words with long Latin words, because by adding more syllables, we diminish their meaning. For example, we say prevarication instead of lie, because when falsehood is expressed in a pompous manner, it loses its intensity and blatancy. But Jesus refused to use soft words when soft words only flattered and deceived. His mission was to help people see themselves as they truly were. He described them with words that accurately captured their character. One day, he told a crowd in the city of Jerusalem that they were like their father, the devil, and that they eagerly pursued their father's evil desires. He went on to say that the devil was a murderer and that he did not abide in the truth because the truth was not in him. We are shocked by such directness of speech. We dislike it. Is it because we are afraid to express things as they are? Have we become accustomed to closing our eyes and trying to make dark things appear gray or even white? Jesus was always honest and sincere, and it was his sincerity that compelled him to speak the plain truth. He told the men around him, "If I were to say I don't know God, I would be lying, just like you." It would have been easier for Jesus to pretend to be ignorant and humble, like others who claim to know nothing and be incapable of anything. But Jesus was committed to the truth. He couldn't hide the fact that his knowledge was extraordinary and his power unmatched. Because he was genuine, he couldn't help but declare himself as the Good Shepherd, the door, the bread of life, and the light of the world. Only sincerity would have driven him to make such extraordinary assertions that offended his fellow countrymen. If he had remained silent or pretended to be ignorant about things he knew, he would have been a liar, just like the men he was confronting. All these remarkable statements about his identity and abilities were revealed because of his unwavering loyalty to the truth. The warnings Jesus gave often received criticism and condemnation because of their severity and frightening language. He told certain people that they were heading towards destruction and described their loss and ruin in a way that made hearts tremble. Why did he use such strong language? It would have been cruel to speak those words if he didn't know the consequences of sin. If he did know, then he was obligated to warn them. The terrifying parables in the New Testament were the product of a sincerely uncompromising heart. How could he speak gently to people whose actions were leading them towards ruin? His sincerity led him to use language that may seem exaggerated and unnecessarily harsh to our cold hearts. He called the leaders in Jerusalem liars, blind men, fools, serpents, and vipers. If they were not all of these things, then Jesus would be condemned for using such cutting words. But what if these men truly deserved those descriptions? If they were indeed liars, fools, and blind, wasn't it Jesus' duty to inform them of their pitiable state? What else could an honest friend do? These men believed they could see and were wise. But if they were mistaken, wasn't it necessary for an honest man to rescue them from their delusion? If they were venomous, deadly, and treacherous, why shouldn't they be compared to serpents and vipers? Jesus' language isn't bitter. It is a calm statement of a horrifying truth. As the Lord of truth, he had to use words that accurately described the people he wanted to instruct and warn. The essence of Jesus' character is revealed in his declaration to Pontius Pilate that he came into the world to bear witness to the truth. That was his purpose, and he never backed down from it. Throughout his life, he was surrounded by people who testified falsely. In every city he visited, they spread lies about him. They distorted his actions, words, and intentions. The witnesses who spoke against him during his trial were liars. But amidst this despicable group of false-minded and malicious individuals, Jesus stood firm, calm, and radiant. He was the only person in the world whose lips had never uttered a falsehood and whose heart had never been tainted by a lie. In the centuries that have passed since Jesus' death, many strange and unflattering things have been said about him. However, it is surprising how reluctant people have been to accuse him of deceit. They have been willing to say he was mistaken, calling him a visionary, a fanatic, an enthusiast, and a dreamer. But no sane person has ever claimed that Jesus of Nazareth intentionally deceived others. Some have argued that his apostles were deceitful and twisted both his person and his teachings, but no one has dared to suggest that Jesus himself was capable of lying. There is something so pure, sincere, and noble about him that doubting his honesty would be like doubting the brightness of the sun. The unwavering loyalty to truth makes his words incredibly valuable, unlike any other words. When we listen to others, we must make adjustments and allowances because they do not always express their true selves. Their words show some parts of them while hiding others. However, Jesus is different. He holds nothing back. He says what he thinks and expresses his true feelings. He speaks honestly and openly. He is not influenced by sin or frightened by opposition. His character is reflected in his words. A Chinese saying claims that words are the sounds of the heart, and this definitely applies to Jesus' words. His words are like the beats of his heart. They are unique and contain the essence of his being. In his words, we see his greatness and glory revealed. Therefore, this is the kind of person we need. Someone like him can be a refuge during difficult times. When we are disillusioned by the world's deceptions and in despair, wondering if anything good exists, we can turn to him. When people let us down and we have few friends, we can go to someone who says, "I am the truth." When we are tired and burdened, we can find solace in someone who is as reliable as the morning and as faithful as the stars. The world is filled with conflicting voices, making it hard to know who to trust. But his voice brings assurance and dispels uncertainty and doubt. We can trust what he teaches about God, believe what he says about the soul, and accept his view on sin and its consequences. We can rely on his understanding of the soul. We can confidently act upon his teachings on living a victorious life. When he instructs us to do something, we can do it, knowing it is the right thing to do. When he warns us against certain actions, we can avoid them, aware that they lead to darkness and death. We can boldly follow the path he urges us to take, knowing that it will lead us safely home. When he promises that he will never reject those who come to him, we can be certain that if we come, we will be welcomed. When he says, "Look, I am standing at the door and knocking. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in and eat with that person, and they with me," we can be confident that if we desire his presence, he will come. This is why we feel so calm and content with Jesus. He brings us peace and healing by being genuine. When our heart rests upon a sincere heart, we find tranquility.